show, we decided to leave the studio and venture out into the wild. Today, our guest is Jean Stamey from the Raptor Trust in Wilmington, New Jersey. Jean is one of the staff members at the Raptor Trust, and she'll be telling us what they do here. Let's welcome her. So, Jean, what is the Raptor Trust, and just how did it start?
Well, the Raptor Trust is a bird hospital for wild birds. It began over 25 years ago. A man by the name of Len Susi, he and his wife just had a love of birds and began taking care of birds that people brought to them. From that, it grew so that now it is certainly the largest and most comprehensive wild bird facility in New Jersey, and one of the biggest and most comprehensive in the United States. And we take care of all kinds of hurt birds that people bring to us, and we also teach people about birds and try to educate people so that maybe some of the things that happen to the birds and to the environment don't have to happen.
What happens to the birds after they're brought here?
Well, we figure out what's wrong with them. And in the spring and summer, like now, a lot of times it's just baby birds who have fallen out of the nest or somehow gotten away from their parents, and they don't need anything else more than someone to take care of them while they grow up and then be set free. But a lot of the birds that come in here are injured, and we figure out what's wrong, and then the best we can, we fix them. And if we can fix them, then we set them free again and send them back to nature where they belong.
How long is the average recovery period for a bird?
That is very hard to average out because it varies so greatly depending on what's wrong with the bird. There might be a bird that flew into someone's window and was just stunned, and within a few hours it might be fine and we might be able to let it go, while there might be another bird that might have to stay here for months, maybe even more than a year, until its recuperation is complete and the time for its releasal is good. So it varies greatly from one bird to the next.
Who helps to take care of them?
Lots and lots of people. We have several people on staff who help to take care of the birds, and we also have lots of volunteers all year round, some, and in the spring and summer when we have all the baby birds as well, because we get hundreds and hundreds of them, we have many, many good people who come and help us out.
What do you do here?
Lots of stuff. During most of the school year, I'm one of the teachers here. And so all kinds of groups, schools and scout groups and 4-H groups and nature clubs and college classes come for programs here to learn about birds, or I travel on the road and teach people about birds. But in the spring and summer, when it's so busy with the baby birds, then I help with the rehabilitation and help take care of the birds at that time too.
Once the bird has healed entirely, do you let it go?
Yeah, and that's always the hope. It doesn't matter whether someone's brought us a Canada goose or a pigeon or a bald eagle. Really doesn't matter. The hope is always that we can fix it and set it free.
What do you do with the birds that can't be released?
Well, some of the birds are so hurt and so sick when they come here that some of them don't survive and they die. And you can see some of the examples of those in the stuffed birds that are around us. And some of those we use for education. We have a taxidermist stuff, and we also donate them to museums and nature centers and things like that so that they can be displays. Some of the birds that can't be let go but are healthy, they don't die, live with us, like little Chainsaw here and like Thorny over there. These are permanently damaged birds that can never go back into the wild because of their injuries, and so they live here and help us teach people about birds. Some of the permanently damaged birds act as foster parents for us. We can get orphaned hawks or orphaned owls come into our center, and instead of people taking care of them, we can give them to a foster parent of their own kind and let nature work its magic and let the bird grow up with a parent of its own kind. So some of the birds that live here serve that purpose as well.
So who pays the doctor bills to take care of these birds?
And they are big bills as well, because it's not just doctor bills, but all of the care, the food, the housing, everything that goes into running this center. The Raptor Trust is nonprofit and tax exempt, and we survive on donations. And so we have lots of good people who help us out. Sometimes it's someone who's brought us a bird and they're so happy to find someone who will help them take care of the bird that they found that they donate to us. Sometimes it's just someone who's heard about us. But we also have organizations, foundations, and some corporations who help us out as well, because the bills are big. We take care of more than 3,000 birds a year. and we don't charge the people who bring us the birds. And so it's very expensive to run the place, and we have a lot of good people who help us out with donations, and they can write it off on their income tax.
Can I keep a wild bird as a pet?
Mm-mm.
No?
You can't. I can't. Wild birds are protected by law, and people are not allowed to harm or kill them on purpose, and nor are we allowed to have them. Not only can't we have them as a pet, you and I couldn't have one of the stuffed ones. You and I could not have, can I do this? You and I could not have a feather, right? We're not allowed to have their parts. We're not allowed to have them live or dead. The Raptor Trust has special permits. We have to get permits from the state that we live in, because every state has laws about birds, and we have to get permits from the federal government in order to do what we do and keep the live ones and the other things that we use for education.
What kind of diseases can birds get, and can they give them to us?
Birds certainly can get sick, absolutely. And it would not be impossible for a person to catch a disease from a bird, but that would be rare. It's not like with rabies. Nowadays, we have to worry if someone were to try to handle, they found a raccoon or even they found a dog that they didn't know, they would have to worry with mammals about the possibility of rabies. But that isn't usually the case in birds. I've handled birds for many, many, many years, and I've never gotten sick from a one. But we would certainly tell people, if you're going to handle anything that would be less than sanitary, you know, wash your hands when you're done and just use normal practices. A person would not have to worry that if they found a bird and they wanted to rescue it, would they have to be afraid that they would get a disease from it? No, no. That's so remote a chance that as long as they're careful and wash their hands afterward, they really shouldn't have to worry.
Is there anything that kids can do to keep wild birds from getting hurt?
Oh, there are lots of things. For example, we get birds every year here who have either gotten tangled up in fishing line or have swallowed fish hooks or gotten pierced with fish hooks because someone who was careless has left their fishing line on the ground or has left a hook lying around, maybe with bait on it. And so that's something that anybody can do if they're fishing, to be careful. The plastic holders that come from six-packs, cut those up. Cut them so that there are no loops in them before putting them in the recycling bins, because sometimes people carelessly throw those away, or sometimes they're even recycling but something falls out of the recycling truck and birds can get caught, other animals too can get caught in those kinds of things. Encouraging your families to be careful with cutting bushes and trees and shrubs, especially in the spring and summer. In the wintertime, you're not going to have baby animals hidden away. But birds and lots of other animals tuck their babies away in the spring and summer into the bushes where nobody can see and into the trees where nobody can see. And when people do that kind of landscaping and cut their trees and bushes in the spring and summer, lots of times they destroy nests and maybe even kill birds or other animals just because they didn't know they were there. So it's encouraging the family to wait and try to do that kind of landscaping in the fall and winter is, something else that can be done.
If I find an injured bird, what should I do?
You want to get a box, put something soft, a clean old towel, a clean old rag at the bottom, gently pick the bird up and put it in the box. You can certainly put on a pair of gloves to protect yourself. Handle it only as much as you have to get it into that box, because handling it will frighten it. Gently put it in the box, put the lid on the box, and then put it in a warm, quiet place, and find a rehabilitation center somewhere like the Raptor Trust, or maybe somewhere closer to where you live. Not everybody has to bring their bird to us. They can even call us if they don't know somewhere else, and we will give them names and phone numbers of people closer to them who can help them out. And then you want to get any wild animal to a place that is licensed, where people know what to do, because that's going to give your bird or whatever animal it is the best chance to survive is if it goes to someone who knows the best way to take care of it.
Do you ever take care of any birds that are considered endangered?
Sure, yeah, we do. Certainly the birds that people bring us the most of are the birds that there are the most of. Most people have seen a lot more Canada geese than they have bald eagles. And so they're going to find more Canada geese than they're going to find bald eagles. They've seen more blue jays than they've seen peregrine falcons. So they're going to find more blue jays than they're going to find peregrine falcons. So we get a lot more of the common birds, but we absolutely get threatened and endangered species here as well. And we have some threatened and endangered species who are permanently damaged and who live here that people can come and see. We have bald eagles, we have peregrine falcons, we have long-eared owls. So there are lots of things that people can come and visit, common and threatened and endangered as well.
What's the difference between raptors and other birds?
Basically, raptors, birds of prey, are hawks and owls, and the thing that makes them different from other birds is that when they hunt using their feet. Lots of birds hunt, but other birds hunt with their beaks. Okay, so a robin's going to pull a worm out of the ground with his beak, and a woodpecker's going to tap on a tree for bugs with his beak, and a pelican's going to dive in the water and catch a fish in that huge pelican beak. But a hawk or an owl, when it hunts, will swoop down and catch its prey with its claws. And so the claws and then a sharp hooked beak, which hawks and owls have, is what sets them apart from other birds.
Okay, let's take some questions from our audience members.
Sure.
Do all of the birds that you get come from New Jersey?
Not all of them, but most of them do. Certainly if someone calls us from out of state, we try to give them the name and phone number of someone nearer to them so that they can get the bird to someone quicker and closer. So most of the birds that come here do come from New Jersey, but we have a few, especially some of our birds that live here permanently, that have come here from other places just for a home. So our snowy owls, for example, and our bald eagles, even though snowy owls and bald eagles can be seen in New Jersey, there aren't that many of them, and the ones that we have here came from elsewhere just for a permanent home.
Rachel?
What kinds of procedures do you use to help heal the birds?
Well, we have X-ray capabilities here, if that's what's necessary to at least determine, to help us diagnose what is wrong. Sometimes we don't need the X-rays. Many of us can tell a broken leg or a broken wing just by feeling it because we've handled so many of the birds, but we do have the X-ray capacity to back that up. We can absolutely give medications to birds here. We can put splints and casts and things on birds here, but we also have veterinarians who help us out so that if more technical procedures are necessary, such as surgeries, the birds then go to a veterinarian. The veterinarians that help us out, and we have one in particular, Dr. Major from the Plainfield Animal Hospital, who has been wonderful in helping us out. And our birds travel to the vets and go for their procedures, like for surgeries, at veterinary hospitals.
What is the most common food that you feed the birds?
Well, the hawks and owls are strictly carnivores, meat eaters, and they are predators in the wild, killing their own food, and mostly hawks and owls feed upon rodents, mice and rats and things like that, although some of them do eat other things. So the raptors that live here, the hawks and owls, eat what they would eat in the wild, and most of them are fed mice and rats. We keep a freezer full of dead mice and rats. And just like someone at your house would go to your freezer and take out steak or meatloaf or chicken and defrost it for dinner tonight, we go to our freezer and we take out mice and rats, and we might take out fish for the bald eagles and defrost it and feed them what they need. But probably the thing we feed here the most is something that we call bird burger, that we may make ourselves, and we use it as the diet that we feed to all the baby robins and blue jays and starlings and that come here, all the baby songbirds. Their parents would be feeding them bugs in the wild, and it's our version of a bug substitute to be nutritious, and we hand feed them little mouthfuls of it throughout the day to raise them. And so that's probably the thing we use the most of.
What's the most common injury for the bird that comes in?
Okay, sure, we get more babies, but that doesn't really count as an injury. Probably the thing that is the most common that we deal with is some sort of an impact, a bird hitting into something, be it being hit by a car, flying into a wire, flying into a window, something like that. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the thing that happens to the birds the most, But when something like that does happen, if a bird flies into a window on somebody's back deck, someone's going to hear it or someone's going to go out and find it. If a bird is hit by a car, the person who hits it may stop or someone else driving by sees it. And so when the impacts and those types of things happen, they usually happen in places where people will be able to find the birds. If something happens to the bird way out in the woods, chances are it's going to die of its injuries, something's going to eat it, and nobody's ever going to find it, even though whatever it was that happened might be more common than an impact in the wild.
Can you tell us something about the birds that you have here?
Sure. What I did was to bring two of the most common birds of prey of our state of New Jersey, and this is Chainsaw. Okay. He's a screech owl, and he's not a baby, he's just little. There are little owls, and there are medium-sized owls and big owls, and this happens to be a little one. And it's the most common little owl in our state of New Jersey, and you don't have to go way out in the woods or way out in the country to find them. There could be one sleeping in a hole in a tree right in your backyard right now. They eat mice year-round. They add to that diet in the spring and summer by eating insects, crickets, grasshoppers, and things like that. And often the only thing that keeps there from being one in a hole in the tree in your backyard right now is that you don't have a hole in a tree in your backyard, because people tend to cut those trees down and take away the homes that critters need. Luckily for us and for screech owls, they will actually go into human-made birdhouses made for owls, and people can actually improve. You were asking me earlier what kids can do to help. You can actually improve habitat, not only by putting out food, you know, bird feeders and bird baths and things, but and natural plantings for natural food, but putting up birdhouses, including owl houses, and maybe give an artificial hole in a tree to an animal where a real hole in a tree didn't exist. This individual screech owl, a couple of years ago, was a baby growing up in a hole in a tree in someone's yard. The people didn't know the owls were there, okay, and they called in the tree service to cut down the old dead tree, and just by very bad luck, the tree service guys cut through the tree, killed a couple of the babies, and cut part of his wing off. Didn't know it, had no idea. In fact, it was the guys from the tree service who came in very, very upset and brought Chainsaw to us. But part of his wing is missing, and just like a person could not grow back part of an arm if they had a terrible accident and had part of their arm cut off, he can't grow back a new wing, and that means he can't fly. And then the big one that I brought, the diurnal one, is a red-tailed hawk. I have to get over to this side to do this, unfortunately. Okay, there we go. Okay. And this is Thorny, short for Thorndyke. She's a red-tailed hawk, the common big hawk of New Jersey, and you can see where the name comes from. They've got this beautiful rusty red tail. And these, again, are birds that people can see, especially in the wintertime along the highways. In the summertime, you won't see them in the trees because the leaves are on the trees, but in the wintertime, when the leaves are off the trees, you can see these guys sitting along the highways and roadways or soaring overhead at any time of year. They're big, wide-winged, soaring birds with big claws, and they would hunt for rats and squirrels and rabbits and such. Thorny was hit by a car a few years ago. Her right wing was very, very badly damaged. Birds, most of the bones in their body are hollow. They have to be light in weight to fly, and one of the adaptations is that they have hollow bones to keep them light in weight. And her wing was so very badly shattered by the impact that her wing had to be amputated. A veterinarian had to perform surgery and remove her wing. And again, she can't grow a new one back, so she cannot fly and cannot go back to the wild. So she earns her rats and her mice by helping us teach people about birds of prey.
Okay, thank you for answering all of our questions and educating us about raptors.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Stay tuned. When we come back, Jean will take us on a tour of the Raptor Trust. Welcome back. Now, Jean, what are we going to see when we go inside this building?
Well, this is the infirmary, the actual hospital. And if you were bringing us a bird, you would come in here and someone would meet you and take a history and find out about the bird and then take it back for an evaluation. And we'll go inside and take a look at some of the birds that are there now. Okay. Now, we can't go where the really sick, hurt birds are because they're kept away from people so they don't get stressed. But we can take a look at some of the orphan baby birds that are here. And this is Ellen, who works here at the Raptor Trust, is one of the teachers during the school year. But as you can see, in the spring and summer, she, like everybody else, feeds baby birds. And right now, she's feeding some orphaned baby starlings. Spring and summer is really our busy time, and we honestly get hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of baby birds that just need to be fed and raised carefully. She's using the bird burger we talked about to feed them. And when they're old enough and self-sufficient, they will be returned to the wild.
These baby ducklings are living inside a pail with a feather duster that they think is their mother.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a little mistake, too.
Here comes Mom. Here comes Mom. Here's Mom.
Let's go outside and look around as Jean explains what birds are found here.
We have 3 snowy owls that live here at the Raptor Trust, live here permanently. They're all damaged birds that can't go back into the wild. We have a female and we have 2 males. What we're seeing on the monitor here is the female who is sitting on 5 eggs. For the last 5 years, this will be year number 5, one of our males and Minnie have bred, and she has laid eggs and raised young. 4 babies each for 3 years, 5 babies last year, and this year, so far, 5 eggs, and we'll see what happens. The babies, when they hatch, are raised by Mom and by Dad and by Uncle Phoebe, the 3rd owl. And during the year when they do not have their young and when she's not nesting, these are birds that people can come and see. But when she is nesting, like she is now, and when they are raising the young actively, that cage is cordoned off to keep it away from people, not to disturb the nesting bird. And as the babies are growing up, we don't want them to grow up used to people, because when they are grown, they will be shipped to an owl center in Ontario, Canada, wintered there, and then next spring released by the Canadian government up into the Arctic tundra. So we want to keep them as wild as possible and let the parents do their job while they're raising the young. Now, these are peregrine falcons, which had been an endangered species for a very long time and are improving their status and are due to be, if they haven't already been, upgraded to threatened species in some areas. The difference that you see in the 2, as far as color goes, is maturity. The one in the back who's moving around, who's browner and has bluish around the fleshy parts around its eyes and beak, that is an immature bird hatched just last year. And the one facing us with the yellowish feet and yellowish around the eyes and beak, and if it would turn around, silvery gray in color, that is the adult plumage of a peregrine falcon. Both of these birds are missing wings. The adult is missing part of a wing. The youngster is missing its entire wing. And so they are both being used as lecture birds and to help people get to appreciate these magnificent creatures that they are. Nervous, high-strung species. Right, these are barred owls, which are a threatened species here in the state of New Jersey. They're swamp owls, and with so much loss of habitat, so many of the swamps disappearing to development, these birds are having a hard time, although where there are swampy areas, they certainly can be locally common. They're one of only two dark-eyed owls in New Jersey. Most owls have yellow or yellowish eyes, but barred owls have those big, dark brown eyes. And they are related to the northwestern spotted owl that has gotten so much attention in recent years because of the loss of its habitat.
Here are a pair of starlings that are taking a break from building a nest. The goal of Raptor Trust is to release injured birds once they have healed. Tom Fritz, one of the volunteers, is seen here releasing a red-tailed hawk back into the wild.
Oh, somebody doesn't want him around. Get out of here, you hawk. All the blackbirds are coming. Get out of here, you hawk. That happens sometimes. Yeah, they recognize the predator.